This is the Cheryl Ann. She's to be our mothership on what I think is the most ambitious fishing adventure I've ever been lucky enough to undertake. We're leaving in the dead of night here because we need to arrive at our destination in daylight. It's the kind of place you'd never find in the dark. It's a remote place, a special place. It's several hundred kilometers offshore, and they describe it as the spot where the fishing is just too good.
Here we go.
Our plan was a simple one, to take a small group of experienced anglers who all love to fish for fun to a remote and special fishing spot on a kind of fisherman's holiday. Apart from our mothership, the Cheryl Ann, we were also taking along the famous Cairns marlin boat, Sea Baby 2, and an old mate of mine who's been her skipper for nearly a decade, Laurie Woodbridge. Laurie spends 100 days a year as one of the best giant marlin charter skippers in the world. On this trip, he'd take a break from all that and do some fun fishing himself. The long trip out would be a towing job. Sea Baby behind Cheryl Ann, my boat behind her. Our destination, a fascinating place called Holmes Reef. A detached reef, 150 sea miles east of Cairns, a couple of sand cays, 2 patches of reef and a weather station. Another of my companions on this trip is longtime sport fishing mate and skipper of our mothership, Roy Allen, also an experienced marlin skipper. By lunchtime, we were well over halfway. Our lunch we had on the mothership. Laurie and his temporary skipper on Sea Baby, Frank Thompson, had a salad, which, by the time it reached them, was somewhat more than lightly tossed. Finally, after nearly 24 hours steaming, we were there.
Look at that. Pretty.
Wow.
There's another little cage just building up here. You can see him just under the water. Big green lollipop. Have a look at that bombing. Yeah, the size of that.
That sand key's built up a lot too since I was here.
Have a look at that. Oh, oh you goosebumps, George.
Oh,
George and Roy had been here some years ago, but the rest of us had never seen a place quite so beautiful. What we were all anxious to do now was explore it. Although places like Holmes Reef are a very small dot on the chart, there are literally hundreds of square miles of country round this reef we could fish. We'd already decided to fish in 2 teams, but thought we also ought to have some sort of a planning conference first.
What's your plan, Wood?
I think we ought to shoot up to the north end there with a fair bit of current run on the north end.
The lady member of our crew, incidentally, is a woman who holds a number of world game fishing records, Jill Hooper.
sounds great.
And Roy and I will go and do our exploring in the little boat.
You going to drive the Sea Baby for me?
I can still remember.
And finally, there's George Bransford, retired founder of the Cairns marlin fishery and first owner of Sea Baby 2.
I haven't greased him since you left.
Affectionately, they call him the Fox.
Hard for me.
What do you reckon we're likely to find out wide there?
With a bit of luck, should find some big eye tuna, yellowfin tuna, maybe a marlin or a sailfish. But I'd say there should be some tuna here, good sized tuna.
How big?
I'd figure up to 100, 120.
I haven't got those oversized reels. We've only got, what, 600 meters on each reel. So you're just going to have to stop them, Roy.
Just get up the front and lock up and let them tow the boat.
Yeah.
rested on across the covering board, hook a leg over it. Just sit there and wait.
Anyway, you
Gotta
should
come
have some
up.
fun with that 130 if you hook a couple of those things.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go. You're going to find out what's here, and then if there's, you know, tuna up to 60 or 80 pounds, something like that, you can go down to 30, 20, maybe 12.
Anyway, we're just going to have a look and swap notes tonight, see how we go.
From what we had already seen of this incredible reef, our time here, we knew, was going to be special. Quite aside from the promising fishing prospects, there was a wreck to explore, lots of diving in the clearest water on Earth, and so many miles of coral drop-off to check out, we couldn't have trolled it all in a whole month. And the most fascinating thing of all for me was the knowledge that only a handful of sport fishermen had ever been here before.
Special thrill, a very special excitement that groups fishermen, especially when they begin fishing in an area that they've never fished in before. And that thrill is all the more intense when you know that not many other people have ever fished an area before and that you're about to fish it. And I can feel that excitement right now because we're trolling along the edge of this magic place, Holmes Reef. Roy Allen, my mate on this trip, and I are just going to explore as much country as we can on this, our first day, just to see what's here. That's exciting stuff just in itself. Our mates on Sea Baby 2, Jill and the Fox and Laurie, are about 7 miles away doing their exploring on another section of reef, and later on we'll swap notes. But for the moment, we're just going to troll this deep edge and see what happens. The red bass? Yes.
Our first red bass, but as we were soon to find out, by no means our last.
Must have got too close to the coral, eh?
On Sea Baby, Laurie and Jill were having their own problems.
Might be a bit big for a bait, Jill.
Who are?
Wind a little bit faster, Jill.
I'm trying.
A little help needed.
Yes.
Maybe falls into something. Oh, hooks. Yeah,
Go on,
take it
get
out,
it.
put it in your belly giver, mate. Break the button, you know. Line, Jill, line. You want me to get a whip out or something?
Oh, stop.
Come on.
Don't be unkind. He's a real bully.
He's trying to tell me it's big. I feel sorry for you, Jill.
Oh, stop it.
I do.
Yes.
We're only supposed to be catching bait, Jill. Not creatures like this. Go, Frank, go! What did I tell you?
Oh, he's a nice one.
Bloody rubbish. Not fair.
Oh, look what I did. Hang on.
Jill's problem fish was one of our big trevallies. Not bad eating barbecued fresh when you're hungry, but more often a release candidate.
We don't want it. We don't want to do it? We don't want it, mate.
Back on our boat, we decided to give the trolling a miss for a while and try something a little bit different.
What's that look like, Mal? Okay, Roy, that looks fantastic, mate. There's a big green hole behind us.
Yeah, because
Anywhere there's just great. Might be a few bass here too. Throw a few poppers at them and see what happens, eh? Be enough tension. From what Roy and I have seen of this country so far, about the most prolific fish that lives on the shallow, brommy areas of this Holmes Reef is the red bass. There are just literally hundreds, perhaps thousands in any given square 100 meters of this country. All we should have to do to catch them is toss a few poppers out and watch what happens. We'll get them stirred up here in a minute. Here they come, Roy.
Here we come. Yeah.
Lean on
Back
it a bit
here.
with that tackle anyway.
He's trying for that coral there.
Not a bad bass,
He's a
actually.
good bass, this one. The colour.
Seem to change colour when they get really intense red when they hook up.
Don't go in there, thank you. Oh, we're working.
Yep. Oh, look at them here. Oh, and around here. There we go.
And things weren't exactly quiet on Sea Baby either.
Oh, wait, say, that is a little better. One. Oh, we only got three.
That for a wood, there's a shark right up here. He's got the wood. No, he hasn't. We got four, but I'll Joe got one. Bring her in, Joe.
Don't they hit hard when they hit those things? Hey, John. Good on you. We might keep one of these for a bit of burley later on.
Yeah.
Fishing inshore on the Great Barrier Reef, we catch these fish by deep jigging off the edge of the coral. But here, they were a plague in the shallows.
There we are. Not as big as yours.
Oh, I can only catch the big ones.
Come on the chew a bit better now. Whack.
It's hard work, Mo.
Yep. But fun. Pity they're not all coral trout, eh?
Oh, yeah.
The bass were endless, and this was turning out to be quite a day of exploration. It didn't seem to matter where we fished, over the coral or in the deep blue stuff. And on Sea Baby, it was all yellowfin tuna, 3 hookups at a time.
I saw a brown thing there a while ago.
Oh, the pain.
All right. One yellowfin.
I suppose you want to eat him.
Oh, sashimi.
George likes fish.
That'd be perfect.
The beauty of a place like this with its crystal clear water is that when you get tired of catching the fish with such regularity, you can go for a swim with them and feed them. I've got my little bundle of fish scraps here. All I need now is my face mask and we'll go in and have a swim.